We thought it couldn't get worse for Concord, which at the time, we thought this cost $250 million to make. Turns out it's close to double that. And then there's the cost for Sony to purchase the developer Firewalk Studios. This has been one cluster that is something that is like, this is like company sinking level big. Now, Sony, of course, is so big that, it's not going to destroy them. But my gosh, this is going to hurt pretty badly. This is a big, big loss that they're taking on this absolute failure. And we're going to get into what came into this number and how it got there in just a moment. My name's John Delarose, everybody. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Join us here as we talk about all things in science fiction and fantasy, of course, including video games. And I am a comic book creator myself. I just ended my Kickstarter campaign, hit $51,000 thanks to viewers like you. And this is available on a backer kit pre-order now. So if you missed the Hidden Emperor right here, you can still grab this for a limited time as I'm setting things up to go to print. It's in the description below. Thank you for supporting our comic books, awesome science fiction, and the channel. It's a great way to do so. And these will be going out very, very soon. The books are already done and ready. And so I am excited to deliver these out to readers. All right, a rumor from Colin Moriarty, the host of Sacred Symbols, claims Firewalk Studios Concord, which was shut down around 2 weeks after it released, cost $400 million to develop. We knew that this was taking place over nearly a decade to try to get this game going. Firewalk Studios has put way, way too much into it for way too little return. And it's kind of weird. This had no single-player mode. It was only a multiplayer game. So why did it take so long to develop? I have no clue. But we saw just what a train wreck it was as it came out. And actually, in the beta test, when they had their open beta and all the people out there went in on it, and there was like 100 people playing, and that's it. We knew this was going to be an abject failure, and of course it is. Look at these character designs out there. I know a lot of people are doing great videos on redesigning the Concord characters so that the game's less of a train wreck, but that's that. They tried to really just get this like Guardians of the Galaxy sort of theme going with it, but only not, and then they added a big, big, big dose of wokeism to it. And it failed, of course, because wokeism always fails. 2024 is where gamers are really pushing back on everything like this. Anything that has this kind of agenda is just not making money anymore, and that's a good thing, as the articles like to say. But it actually is in this instance. Moriarty detailed in a video uploaded to X that he spoke extensively with a Concord insider who informed him that it cost about $400 million to make. Wow. He says it was internally referred to as the future of PlayStation, with Star Wars-like potential and a dev culture of toxic positivity. Halted any negative feedback, costing around $400 million. Yeah, I mean, if they're sinking this much money into it, they were trying to develop a full, sort of property, an IP. And you've seen it with games like League of Legends have gotten their Netflix animated shows and things like that. Halo's turned into a TV show. So they are hoping that a lot of these video game properties now are becoming huge future properties, and not just in gaming media, but with merchandise and comics and all these things. They, of course, hoped that Concord was going to do that. But, of course, without anybody actually playing the game, that was never going to happen. And again, I just am shocked that they didn't bother putting in a single-player campaign. If you're putting this much into development into it, you need some kind of storyline, some kind of something beyond just like these multiplayer matches. It doesn't make any sense on this level. It's like they lazily half-developed this kind of thing. And this is something I've heard of before, this toxic positivity, that there's not allowed to have any negative feedback. Back in the day with Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, I had a friend over at Lucasfilm, and he told me that, I asked him, I said, did anybody actually give George Lucas any pushback on putting these like Jar Jar Binks like into the movie and things like that? That just made this into like a cringy train wreck. And I know everybody's a little less sour on those movies these days, but gosh, that's only because the Disney ones are so much worse. But back then, it was like, this is a travesty compared to the original Star Wars. It was bloated. The storylines really were not tight. It was like somebody had stopped producing movies for 20 years and decided to produce movies all of a sudden. And what he told me is he saw one person go into Lucas's office and say, hey, this isn't good. And that guy was fired immediately. So yeah, there are cultures of fear that are created at these companies. And it's done on the woke level too. If you criticize the pronouns, if any of that stuff, these people always, you feel like you're going to get fired for it. And so this is a cross corporate culture at this point, and people are not willing to speak up, because why would you risk losing your job over that? Doesn't make any sense. And so what happens is, of course, you don't get products that are any good. He went on to reveal that Probably Monsters, the original owner of Firewalk Studios in Concord, before selling to PlayStation Studios, Sony and the game's original investors spent $200 million on the game before it even made it to its alpha state. Moriarty said up to the point the game went to alpha state, they already had spent $200 million on it, and it's unclear how much of that money is from Probably Monsters and the original investors in the game, and how much of it was from Sony. Next, he shared when a game had $200 million spent on it, it was basically in alpha form in Q1 2023. From that point, the game launched, Sony spent another $200 million on it. Wow, that's only over the last year. The scuttlebutt behind the scenes about Concord is that the game was in laughable shape when it was shown. Basically, when it was alpha, it was ready to go. It was in such horrible shape that Sony felt they needed to spend that much money again, 200 plus 200, to get it to minimum viable product status. Not to the status of being a great game, just to viability. Of course, we know it's not a great game. They didn't even bother fleshing it out. A major expense was to urgently outsource as much of the game to other studios to finish building the game out, and that two fundamental games were not worked on at all up to the point which the game was shown in alpha. Onboarding, nothing about that. There was nothing about how players make their character, all that kind of stuff, or choose their character and get there. And monetization. Two very expensive, very specific boutique things that happen for games like this. Oh, look at this control. Now, the controller actually looks pretty cool. If it wasn't I think they're like $80, $85, I probably would have got one just because it looks, what a nice design. Really doesn't say anything about Concord. It just looks cool. But now it's a collector's item, probably really expensive on eBay. Later in the video, Moriarty claimed that executives at Sony and specifically PlayStation Studios boss Herman Holst were championing the game and believed the game could be their Star Wars. What hubris. Just going out there and being like, hey, this unknown property from this unknown developer that we're just going to be throwing into these things. We're purchasing the studio. This is going to be the next Star Wars. My gosh, you really have to be sniffing your own farts to think that, especially with this kind of a design right here. Who's gonna even ever want to play as this character? Oh my gosh. So interesting. They said that they had such major ambition that it was referred to internally as a Star Wars project for Sony, repeatedly revisited over and over, not only in cross-media, but that's what we were seeing. And he said that you were not allowed to say anything internally about the game, about how something's wrong with it, character designs are not right. They truly believed. This was Herman Holst's baby, and he internally was himself a massive champion of the game. Wow. And so this is exactly what we're talking about here. And obviously, they were blindsided by the fact that this just failed with gamers right away. But this is all because of the DEI agenda, because this was in here, because they knew that they were going to try to embrace that woke ideology, try to push this as hard as they possibly could. And when the game came out, we saw on the Steam tags that it was listed as LGBTQ, that it was listed as politics. This is what they were hoisting their petards on, and they got hoisted by their petards because of it. And that's exactly what's been happening in all woke media in 2024. We've seen these people have been pushing out there, and I think these companies truly believed that because all the HR departments were pushing all these programs of DEI everywhere, and that's all they heard. DEI, DEI, oh, it's great, let's be more inclusive. That's what a nice word. That they thought that the culture was with them, but the culture was never with this stuff. Stuff succeeded in spite of that. When you saw Disney and Marvel doing this kind of thing, they already had brands that were established that people loved, and what happened was it slowly turned them away. People weren't willing to just turn away after the first movie because they'd been invested so many freaking movies into it that it took a couple for it to actually get there. But once it did, because of the DEI, all these things have started to die in the ratings, and nobody's watching them anymore. It is a thing, and now in video games, especially when you don't have a property behind you that people already love, it's going to be dead on arrival every single time this happens. Get woke, go broke is a very real thing, and this is exactly what happened to Concord here. Well, for Sony, I don't really care. Couldn't happen to a nicer company. They've been screwing with consumers far too much over the last year, and with Stellar Blade censorship, with the Helldivers 2 situation where they were trying to force people onto the PSN network in order to just play the game over there, even if you're on Steam, which they're doing for other games, even if they did walk that back on that initial one. It is something that's an anti-consumer practice over there, And yes, couldn't happen to a nicer company. All right, leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to pre-order the Hidden Emperor graphic novel on BackerKit today. That's in the description below. Thank you guys so much for the support. It's been incredible. We'll be back soon.